Welcome back to the podcast. Gabe, Giannis, and we are joined by Dennis Marshall and Matt De La Valle for one of the first episodes we're going to do, talking primarily about training, but who knows where the conversation is exactly going to go. Right before this particular podcast, I had I don't know, what do you think, Gabe? I probably had 10 minutes. Him and I were riffing back and forth and some other stuff. I'm like, all right, I got 10 minutes. I went and ran stairs. And so I am fired up and I am ready for a good conversation. You know what's nasty about stairs? It's not the first set. It's that second and third set, dude. When you hit that tip after 30, 40 steps, my legs were burning, feeling good, ready to chat fitness. Good morning, gentlemen.
So, good morning.
Good morning.
I saw that you got a stair climber?
Oh, no. So I actually so that's funny.
No, but you also bought a stair climber, right?
I also have a stair climber. So stepper. So yes. I ran stairs because I have stairs in my backyard. So I did that. So dude, Stepper reached out and they're like, hey man, we'd love to have you check out our product. And I was like, hell yeah. Because back in the day when I used to work at the conventional gym, one of my favorite pieces of exercise or favorite tools was that kind of escalator looking stair machine. And I ended up using that for the CrossFit Games also to build up some leg stamina. Neil Maddox and I used to go to the local 24-hour fitness and do it. And so I got one from Stepper, but in particular, I got one without all the bells and whistles. So the guy asked me, he's like, hey, do you want it with the Netflix and LED screen, all that shit? I'm like, no, dude, I should show you the email. I was like, I'm gonna be head down grinding on this thing. I don't want to watch, a Netflix. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to get in some good training. So yes, I just got that though.
Stepmaster, man.
No,
is this going to go?
Stepper.
Got it.
Stairmaster was the original.
Remember that, Dennis? You know the good conventional gym days. You've been on that before, right?
Yeah, of course. Might have been one time, and then I never went on it again.
Hands down, the best cardio at the Globo gym is the repeating steps.
Repeating steps. That's a better way of saying it. So yes, I will let you guys know how I use the repeating steps, but I'm thinking it's going to be 20-minute intervals, like EMOM, or I don't know, we'll see.
I always like using them where every 2 or 3 minutes you go up, you take the intensity of the pace of the steps up a little bit, and then you get to the point where if you misstep even a little bit, you're teetering on the edge of falling off that thing.
Yeah.
It brings going to go the way of the Versa Climber, or is this thing actually going to get used?
So the Versa Climber ended up being donated to the local police department. So I got that out of the garage. I did not use it. To be honest, I have no allegiance to Versa Climber, so I'm just going to say it like it is. I thought the product was not good. I thought that it was, even though it was US made, it was I don't know where they made it in the US, but it didn't seem like it was the best quality. And so Stepper, we'll see how it goes, man. I mean, here's a question for the crew. On one of these escalator style machines, is it cheating to hold on to it?
I don't particularly think so. I think that there's definitely a way to hang your weight too far over the top of the repeating stepper. The bars come over the front and then down the sides. I like having the security of lightly holding the side rails. I don't lean up over the top where you're placing a higher percentage of your body weight on the machine and really not moving your weight up and down the steps as much. But the oh shit bars that you hold on the side, I think that those are fine.
Yeah, for balance. Not spotting yourself the entire time, but just balancing yourself is probably fine.
Yeah. Oh, man. All right. Well, I'm going to have some fun with that thing. It brings up some good memories of me and Neil Maddox. Oh, man. We were getting ready for 1 year at the CrossFit Games, and we were intervaling on that thing. And, we were competitive, so we would just keep speeding it up. But it ended up turning more into what MDV was talking about. We were basically hanging over the front of it, trying to not fall. So anyways, I'll let you guys know how it goes.
I think a good place to start with, a bunch of very experienced people in the training space, just because you were given a hard time for getting the screen on the machine and stuff, and going on there and just moving for 40 minutes, 50 minutes. What value, because we were talking about this before, we had a call talking about programming, and we were kind of talking about our programs and what the value is in, beating yourself down to the ground, how many times per week should that happen? So I'm curious, like everyone's training now, what is, I guess, the use of those days where you do feel like, you're beating yourself to the ground, and how often are you guys getting there?
You want to take that first, Den?
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's definitely value in pushing your threshold, whatever that is, mentally, physically. How often you can do that, I think obviously depends on your stage in life, your training age, your goals, a lot of other variables that go into that, your overall just kind of stress load. And I mean, for me personally, I'll probably dabble in that once or twice a week nowadays. And that seems to be the sweet spot. Any more than that, and I just can't really. I did a workout on Monday of last week, like heavy back squats, which I haven't done in a really long time, and a decent number of them. And they were it was combined with rope climbs and dumbbell bench press, like heavy, and a pretty high amount of volume overall, and pretty high. And like I think I gave myself rhabdo. Like I was fucked for like 5-6 days. Like I couldn't, like I went to the gym the 5-6 days after that session, and I couldn't even think about trying to push that hard. So just kind of going through the motions. So, you have to kind of gauge how you respond to those days and whether you can recover from them and come back the next day and do it again. So for me, it's like once or twice a week. Yeah.
Are you asking personally how often do I push that threshold? I'd probably say I'm in about the same range as Dennis there. I'll choose 1 or 2 workouts a week to really throttle down. I like feeling like I get a really great workout in every day. Like I want to feel like either, I've accomplished the goal for that day of, hitting the type of volume or the loading or the body part split or the type of conditioning I want to hit. But probably like 1 or 2 times a week, really kind of feeling that burn. But I think that this is an interesting discussion where it's like, for all the good that CrossFit has done for the fitness space, I do think that it sometimes places unrealistic expectations on intensity of your workout regimen overall. Like every day does not need to feel like that. And for most people, maybe none of their days, or maybe one day every once in a while, needs to feel like that. I just don't think it's necessary to put yourself in the position like, hey, for the next 3 or 4 days, I can't do anything for most people.
I think it's interesting because we all come from a background where we were probably doing it most days. Or at least I know I was. I know Jason still is. And I think that's, interesting how he got to that point in itself. It was interesting too. Like we were talking about this with Annie Thorisdottir and how she's gotten into helping women specifically train, like postmenopausal women with fitness, and how for them, the importance is actually hitting more intensity and more heavy weights to, at least that's, what she was saying, to buffer some of like what has come to be accepted as like the inevitable symptoms of that stage in life. And the reason I bring that up is because I think that for us who maybe it would be easiest to lean into that type of intensity because we've had it from our training background, maybe it's more beneficial to kind of tone that down. But for other people that have never really hit it or don't even have like the prerequisite skills or understanding of fitness to hit it, they would actually benefit from it the most. But I don't know. I don't know if you guys agree that like
she was talking about sprinting too, which I think is incredibly valuable. Sprinting,
high intensity stuff. I think that there's also like a misconception of like what quote unquote high intensity needs to be or look like. Does it need to be Fran and torn hands, or can it just be something that's very low impact, but quote unquote intense? Or can it be, a bodybuilding day where there isn't that like stress of, am I going to PR this workout that I've done 10 times throughout my career? Or am I just going to, work really hard, but it looks different because there's no, did I win the workout or did I lose the workout? I don't know. What do you?
Well, Dennis, just real quick on what, your workout, like that's an example for me of like gone too far in the sense of like, when I can't go, wrestle, throw the ball, or like go do something with my kids, like that's a big problem for me. So I throttle every day. and I'm going to continue to throttle every day. It's just the way I roll, man. But when I throttle, I'm reducing the complexity and movements that I know are going to like for example, you're not going to catch me doing a workout with kipping pull-ups at like super high intensities. I don't want to not be able to like, stretch my arms out, or you're not going to catch me doing, I don't know, high rep, moderate weight squats in a workout. It's just, I don't want to get that sore. But what I will do is hit the red and bike and burpee and this and that. Like that's kind of where I'm at. But, anyways, sorry, Gabe, I went off on a tangent, but that's what got me thinking about his workout is like, there is a difference between throttling like that and then throttling on other movements that don't get you quite as sore, like that don't get you so, because what got you so sore, Dennis? Was it the rope climb?
It wasn't even soreness. And I think that's really like, it wasn't so much soreness. It was like my central nervous system was just shot. And when I think of like throttling and think of like intensity, I'm talking about like, imagine some of the workouts that you did back either at the CrossFit Games or in preparation for that, the type of intensity that you elicited with that, regardless of the technicality of the movement, or even the loading, like just that type of like red line where you go into a place where like you're not even sure whether you're on this planet anymore, like that. And not necessarily, I didn't necessarily go there, but I mean, that's a different level of intensity than probably what you're experiencing now. When you say you're throttling it every day, like you're not throttling it to the extent that you were throttling it 10 years ago. So it's all relative to kind of where we sit. But
yeah, I'm not passing out. I'm not passing out.
That's what I mean. Like, yeah. Right. So I think we have to just, it wasn't so much the soreness. It was just like digging down into a place in my nervous system that I haven't had to dig in a really long time. And it just left me spent for like a week. And that's what I think of when you say like throttling it, when you think of like real high intensity work, that's the kind of stuff that I kind of refer to.
You know where you can get that from, Dennis, that we're going to get you into soon?
Let me take one guess.
Jiu-Jitsu.
Take one guess.
Man, there's some days in jiu-jitsu where, dude, it's like, bro, you're just getting smashed, and you're when you're done, your central nervous system, to your point, you just feel. I have, we were MDV and I were talking about this earlier about like kind of like relatability and whatnot. Like there have been some days where I finish a jiu-jitsu session and I have told myself that I'm going to go do another session after that of like strength conditioning, like on the side of the mat with a sandbag or whatever. And I just get there and like, I literally just can't move. I'm just done, to your point. So same thing.
Yeah. Well, in terms of jiu-jitsu, I think it also should be noted that like, you don't have to roll that hard all the time, or even most of the time, or even if you're not interested in some of the time, right? Like, I think one of these things that like can sometimes get stressful about jiu-jitsu, both like from a emotional and physiological standpoint, is the fact that like sometimes in these open mats or live rolls, people end up treating it like the ADCC finals, like trying to actually roll as hard as humanly possible, putting on submissions very quickly on people. And I think that there also can be like recreational jiu-jitsu that is highly beneficial for you in terms of learning the techniques, understanding the journey and the discipline that it takes to progress through it, and rolling at a decent pace, but also respecting other people's journeys, that if they are maybe in their mid 40s, they don't want to roll at that kind of type of pace or style. And I think that like some of that's ego. Like I think you can check your ego, and I'm not saying never roll hard, or maybe when you roll hard, choose your battles or choose your opponent really wisely, somebody who has your best interest in mind, that knows not to slam a submission on you super fast. But like, I just think that it doesn't need to be like that. I think that there's perfect ways to train both in the gym and with jiu-jitsu, that if you're not interested in going 1,000 miles an hour, you don't have to. And that's kind of ultimately where I've landed on some of this stuff too. It's like, if I get a workout in one day, maybe it's not the best workout or the most perfect workout or the most intense workout I've ever done in my life, but it's better than not doing anything that day, right?
How realistic is that in most schools, like in most classes? Because
It's
you have
realistic.
to, like you can always find someone that's going to be okay not going super hard.
Yeah, dude. So just to give clarity's sake, like, when I really want to get into the red, I'll go to a specific school and a specific comp class, and everybody there is going there for that particular stimulus.
But in most
no, Gabe.
classes,
Oh yeah, Gabe. I mean, dude, like for example, if I go to class tonight, most people most of the time are in MDV's camp, right? They're just trying to get good rolls, they're trying to learn something, whatever. But the energy you could know, like if someone's getting ready for a competition and you want to have like a tough roll, that's where you go, right? Like you just got to know what that person is looking to get out of it for that particular day. And sometimes they're gonna, be RP 10, and sometimes they want to go RP 5. There's some days that I go into jiu-jitsu and very rarely, but sometimes like I go in there and I'm just like, obviously depending on who I'm with, like I'll just be like low key, because you want to be a good training partner, of course. Like if that person's not looking to go RP 10, you sure as hell shouldn't either, because you're going to get a lot out of it as well by slowing it down and really working your technical skills. So yeah, there's definitely ways you can get that into school that, because I heard you're going to get some privates in Seguin. So we'll be able to have you working with your instructor on that.
Well, I think that there's also like a level of honesty, like in particular with jiu-jitsu, there's a level of honesty that you need to have with your training partners. Like if you're injured or you're nursing something or you're not feeling great, or maybe you're not there to roll at a competition style level, like selecting, like I said, your battles and your opponents and telling them before you get into your roll, hey, like, my shoulder's busted and, I'm just rolling lightly today. I think having the humility to be honest with your training partners about that stuff is really, really important. And there's a fine line too between like, never rolling hard, and then what if there is a real life application of these skills that you have to have and not knowing whether or not they actually work in a real life application or in some sort of confrontation, right? Because, you can have the best whatever game or whatever submission that you in the world, if your partners are letting you get it every single time, right? If they're always allowing you to put your submission on or practice your technique flawlessly, then there's no real resistance. And there's a huge difference between 50% resistance, 75% resistance, and 100% resistance to what your opponent is trying to do to you and you do to them, right? So like having some of that real world experience of like, oh, this person was really fighting pretty hard and I wasn't able to do anything, I think gives you a better understanding of like where you might realistically stand in like the equation,
Are you back on the mats, MDB?
No, not yet. I've done some work with Ricky Lule, who's a black belt here in Oceanside at 10th Planet. And I rolled with him for about an hour, and it was really fun, really exciting, a bit scary. It was the first time I had really rolled in like a year and a half after my hip surgery. So a lot of it was still there. I mean, I had to think a lot more about like what positions I was in, what positions he was putting me in, and he was being very gentle with me. But we had a lot of fun. It was super fun to roll, and everything felt mostly okay.
Yeah. How much of that sticks? How much of that like do you not lose now having some time off? I'm curious. Or do you feel like a fish out of water all over again? And I know you weren't doing it for like a super long time before, but you were doing it for a while. I mean,
yeah, I'd done it for about like 2.5, 3 years,
like super consistently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of it came back. A lot of the natural instincts were there. Some of the positions that I wasn't as proficient in when I was doing jiu-jitsu regularly. I didn't necessarily know what to do to, escape or put myself in a better position to not be submitted, in a leg entanglement or things like that. I think that that stuff, I wasn't as far along in my journey as like my A game, quote unquote A game. And my A game still felt pretty good. It was still there. So, yeah, I think it would come back. I don't think I would ever roll at the intensity that I was rolling at before my surgery regularly again. So I would probably take it a little bit more like just a recreational jiu-jitsu player and go to class and learn the techniques and roll with people I'm comfortable with.
Jay, have you ever taken like a long time off the mats and can speak to like it coming back?
I mean, but it's interesting because, and I'm sure Dennis has had this experience too, but it's interesting because, or all of us, I have moved away from complexity in my training for fitness. So I don't know if I've taken more than 2 weeks off the mats in probably 9 years. I really, my mind really needs jujitsu. I find that I roll at a relatively high tempo, and I have a lot of like kind of like this whatever, and jujitsu or striking, boxing, kickboxing gives me a stimulus that nothing else in my life can give me. And that aggression, that combat is necessary for me. So I haven't been able to go more than 2 weeks without really feeling a strong urge to get back into it. That being said, when you look at fitness, it's really, really interesting to me because like I don't snatch at all anymore, but yet, I could still snatch well. Maybe not, obviously not as heavy. And I haven't done a muscle up on the rings in probably since the Rogue Invitational, but yet I could still do one. And so it's really interesting how your body can get back into these things, especially if you, if anybody out there is looking to acquire new skills, they diminish, of course, over time, but your body gets back to them very quickly. And so it's really cool because you could spend a bulk of time developing these skills and they're going to be with you forever. It's like learning how to ride a bike. You could, it might take you a few minutes to get back on it, but you're going to still be able to do this skill, assuming you have the strength side for it. But that's my big takeaway from a fitness perspective. Like I think handstand walk, I could still do that.
The skills stick, but some of the things that inevitably start just diminishing with age, right, is like fast twitch muscles and kind of stuff like that. And that's the stuff you have to work more to maintain. Dan, that's why you're hitting the track now, right?
I'm trying. It's sad.
Wait, what are you doing?
Sad?
Hang on. What are you doing on the track, dude?
Just sprints, like 100-meter, 50-meter sprints. Just trying to like actually like sprint. It's such a strange feeling, like knowing, man, when you haven't done that for a long time, that feeling of just being able to like just let go and just release and just like all out run as fast as you possibly can with reckless abandon, that goes away for sure. And like every single step I take, at least for the first few sessions, it was just like waiting for something to explode on my body. Like what's going to explode first? My hamstring, my Achilles tendon, like I didn't, and so like you're so cautious every single step. And then the more you do it, the more repetition you get. You kind of reach this point where you develop some confidence and comfort, but it's still like to be able to really reach down and just full on run as fast as you possibly can. It's not there yet. It's not there. Like and I don't know if I'll ever find it, but I'm going to keep trying. Every week I try to get some sprints in.
What do you?
How fast I can get.
This is super interesting to me. What are you doing? So you're on a flat track.
Yeah.
What are you doing to warm up and prepare before you actually go for like your all out?
Yeah, I go back. I'll typically start out with like some just like dynamic drills, like like typical track and field sort of stuff that you would see, like A skips, B skips, high knees, butt kicks, like karaoke. But then even prior to that, I'll typically just like warm up my lower body with like some very light resistance training movements, like GHDs, split squats, some hamstring curls, just to like get all the muscles warm and fired up. And then I'll always start out slow, like the first few where I'm kind of like dipping my foot in the water just to see how everything's going to feel. And then by 4, 5, 6 sprints in, I can start to really kind of push it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, like it's one of those things where like I feel like I'm running fast and I'll record some of them and go back and watch it. Like, oh
what's your 100?
I've been doing 100-yard sprints, so it's probably, it's a little off. And my timer, I'm using my stopwatch to time them, and I'm usually like around 15 seconds on them.
Okay. So you're not Usain Bolt, but you're getting close.
Yeah, it's not. It's maybe like 150-year-old Usain Bolt, maybe.
It's probably still faster than what I could do.
Dude.
I don't know, man.
Once you
you know,
start doing
Dennis-
long distance running, it's like the most specialized thing you can do. You get slow at everything else.
Yeah.
At the men's club, we do sprints almost every week, and typically we'll do them on a hillside because I feel like it just puts my body at less of a risk. But I love the idea of incorporating sprinting as a man as you get older, or based on Annie Thorsdotter's conversation as a woman as well. It's just, dude, it's such a practical skill. Like, I mean, if you think about like a life skill that you need to absolutely maintain forever, getting up and down on the ground and being able to sprint, like those are such foundational skills. Like, shit's going down, you got to sprint. Your kid's running in the street, you got to sprint. I mean, but if you haven't exposed yourself to it, like, it's not going to be there,
No, it's not going to be there. Yeah.
Dude, and super fascinating. We were talking about this when we had that call before. I mentioned it, Jay, before you got on, but I've been like immersed in this podcast with this guy, David Roche. So he broke the Leadville 100 record by a lot. And with a super unconventional approach. But one of
that's the mountain biking one, the Leadville, right? Or they also have a running
mountain
one?
bike, but they have a running one. And same thing, it's 100 miles. It's a 100-mile running race. And he broke the record that some people said was never going to be broken. It's been 19 years. And he broke it without ever having run 100 miles before. And with a super unconventional approach. But one of the things, and the reason I'm bringing this up, is he did a lot of hill sprints and hill like power work and the way he explains it is so good. Cause he was saying that like the guy who held the record he mentions his VO2 is like super crazy. He's like an anomaly, like a freak. He's like, I can't beat him at his own game. So he had to come up with a very unconventional approach to train his body to do what's a really long race in a way that you would actually train more for like speed and power. And then he combined that with figuring out how to like hack his nutrition so he can constantly fuel for that type of power output for that long, because conventional wisdom is you can't run. You can't like have a high power output for a 100-mile race. It's like, it's hours upon hours upon hours. Conventional ultramarathon training wisdom is just, you have to time on your feet. It's like you're going out and you're running like 150 to 200 mile weeks leading up to a race. It's all about just like numbing your body to the punishment. And he did it running 50, 60, 70 mile weeks, which is like what marathon runners are doing. Like I ran a 50-mile week last week. It's nothing super, super high for that community. So the fact that he was able to do it and do it by so much is impressive. But he talks a lot about the value of hill sprints and the lower impact, the power benefit to it, all the good that you can get to it without a lot of the beat down that you get by just like logging endless miles. It's a fascinating podcast. Highly recommend anyone that's interested to check it out.
What was the name again?
His name is David Roche, and he's on the Rich Roll podcast, is specifically one that I listen to. Yeah, really good, really.
But that's also a unique setting because the Leadville. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like it's a hilly run, right?
I think he was saying it was 16,000 feet of climbing across the entire race.
Is that the same one Rich Froning or that Matt Chan did? Remember we had him on the podcast?
Yeah, they did it on the mountain bikes.
There's the bike.
There's the bike race. There's a cool documentary of Lance Armstrong doing that that I remember watching. But there's also the running race. I don't know if it's the same exact course, but it's obviously in Leadville. So there's the heat component. There's the fact that you're at 10,000 feet of elevation, start and finish, and you're climbing a bunch of different
18,000 feet of
vertical gain. That is so much. So that's like
I didn't know we had a Jamie to pull this up.
Oh, we got a young Jamie.
Young Jamie,
been
pull
on
this
the
up.
podcast in a while. 15 hours out there.
And that's the course record? Wow.
Yeah.
15 hours. That's a long ass time. Zach Rains wants me to do a 100-mile. He wants me to do something on a bike. He wants me to do a bike race.
You've done a 100-miler on the bike, right?
I have. Yeah. But he wants me to do, it's called the Tahoe 100K this summer.
On a bike though?
Yeah.
100Ks. That's like a 30-mile bike ride. You're fine.
Yeah, but I mean,
100K.
it's in Tahoe. I mean, I don't know. It's
like some high elevation.
But yes, I've done a century ride just because I want to do it.
Yeah. The other thing he talks about on that, and Dennis, now that you're doing a little bit of running, I don't know if you've tried these new super shoes.
Oh, God.
Have you tried a pair of them?
The shoe game has changed so much, man.
Dude. It's
just
super
continues to evolve.
Super shoes. So, all right. So let me tell you.
Like
Dennis, have you not heard of these?
No.
Oh, bro.
It's
like Reebok pumps, like those kinds of things.
No.
No, but the technology on these is advanced. It all started with the guy who I think he broke the 2-hour marathon record. Nike specifically made a pair of shoes for him with crazy NASA technology of like incredibly responsive midsole. So like the shoes are bouncy, and they have a carbon fiber plate in the middle of it that gives it the rigidity. Because in the past, my understanding of it, again, from what I've read, is you couldn't have a very responsive midsole because then you have this floppy shoe. So you needed to have a balance between like an actual stable enough shoe, but have some cushion, but combining the carbon fiber plate with the super responsive midsole, there's and you'll see these shoes because they are like super big. Like there was a while, and you guys all remember this, where like minimalist footwear was like the thing. People were like in the toe shoes or like super like zero drop. Now you look at runners and they're like, there's actually a limit to the stack height of shoes because brands were making them so big. So now there are some that aren't race legal. I think you need a 40 millimeter stack height or less. But anyway, the what he talks about on the podcast is, aside from the performance benefit, just the ease of recovery because of how much of the impact it absorbs, and how this is making running like a lot more accessible and like just easier on people. Because at the end of the day, running is very high impact. That's why hill sprints are so great. But these style of shoes have made running feel significantly more comfortable for people. And I ended up buying a pair. They're not cheap. Like the low end, the cheapest you can get of like this type of shoe is probably like around the 180, 190. And they go as high as like 260, 270. And apparently they also don't last as long. So you're buying these like really expensive shoes that, potentially you'll have to go through like 2 or 3 of them in a marathon training block. So,
Nike,
but you put them on, then like if you were to put them on, it would feel like cheating. Like,
yeah, right.
No bullshit. Like you go out, you start running, and you're like, what am I running on? You're running on like a cloud. It's really, it's weird. And it feels like a little bit like you're not trying to take any hard turns on it. Cause it does feel like you're so high off the ground. But it's fascinating how all this technology like has advanced so much. And it's been particularly interesting for me because I was like really big into the endurance world, and then like I wasn't, and now you're back, and like what they're doing with like nutrition stuff and like shoes and all this. It's crazy. It's wild.
I would say, I wonder how that affects, like, I mean, for sprints, I really don't think there's like any utility in it. Right. But because I mean, part of the benefit of sprinting is like the impact.
Yeah.
Like you want the impact.
Dennis, have you worn spikes?
No,
bro.
Like football cleats.
No, like track spikes, bro.
Dude, I'm running 15-second 100 yards.
You show up in spikes.
I'll show you the video. I don't need spikes.
Dude, you need spikes.
I could be wearing Chuck Taylors. It doesn't make a difference. But I mean, like even if you're like a recreational runner, you're using it just like as a form of exercise and activity. I also wonder though, like, the utility of wearing those shoes. Like, sure, it reduces the impact, but if you're not training like tons of mileage, I wonder if that actually reduces part of the benefit of running, which is the actual collision, like that you create, and the impact, which will improve bone density and a lot of other things that might be beneficial as a result of the impact. So there's probably, I mean, certainly if you're running 50 miles a week, probably makes sense.
A lot of this stuff, it gets into like existing in the fringes, right? Like you're getting to the outer realm of what you actually need to have the benefits of going out for a run. Like you said, if you're doing 50 plus or 100 plus mile weeks, for sure. And if your goal is to win the Leadville 100, then you need every competitive advantage that you can get to do that for elite performance. But like, if you're just waking up and you want to run a little bit more, you don't need the carbon fiber footprint rebound technology to go do that.
Right.
Oh man, but it is
pretty crazy.
There's no gearheads like endurance gearheads, like cyclists, runners.
Cyclists have to be the number one gearhead. Cyclists.
Yeah. Oh, dude,
because you never see a cyclist out there just like in shorts and like a t-shirt.
No, all the gear.
Like, where are the people who are wearing shorts and a t-shirt? Everyone looks like they fucking ride for the postal service. Like the full uniform, goggles, and everything.
The craziest thing about the money that cyclists are dropping is, like a lot of it is like, how can you get the lightest bike, right? It's like, how can you have the lightest thing, because it does help considerably on climbing. But like you see a lot of cyclists and you're like, sure, you paid an extra $5,000 for a 6-pound bike versus an 8-pound bike. But trust me, there's more than 2 pounds that we can shed off the unit, right? The rider plus bike, there's much more than 2 pounds that we can, we can fix. And you're talking
racing BMX bikes,
$15,000 bikes.
Oh, bro, or more. Like, dude, mountain bikes nowadays. Have you seen the mountain bike? Like, especially the e-bikes, dude. Like $10,000 mountain bikes is like not like an absurd thing to talk about at all. Like, it's just normal. When I was racing BMX bikes, people used to always carbon fiber became really popular, and I remember like people's parents who had more money than my parents would try and upgrade the bikes. And I just thought it never really it was really interesting to me because I would watch people around me who didn't perform as well have like these super fancy bikes. And it's like, dude, they'd be better off just like training harder. And anyways, combination of both, I guess, would be nice.
What's the BJJ equivalent of, the carbon fiber shoes when you don't need carbon fiber shoes yet? Is there like a type
every
of
rash guard in the
or
world? I think it's mostly the rash guards and the gis, the really expensive gis, right? And the really like having the array of every new rash guard that comes out.
Yeah, there's
definitely gear.
Yeah, there's not. There's not tons of gear for jiu-jitsu. Yeah, you could say the same thing. CrossFit became like gearhead-ish, like
huge,
all the things, right? Yeah, like, dude, you have a backpack with like. I remember specifically when I would travel for competition, I would always carry 2 belts with me, and so I'd have my backpack and I'd wrap the 2 belts like around it, so like around and people would always give me like this weird look, because the leather belt in particular would never fit anywhere and it would just be like hanging all over the place. Oh man, knee sleeves, and name the thing, I had it.
Yeah, but you were like putting that stuff to good use and like literally fighting for like every pound and second. There are guys like that train at the gym that have every brand new shoe and wrap and this and that. And you watch them train, and you're like, I don't know if we have to worry about the shoes at this point.
No, it was funny when they were designing one of the first versions of the Froning shoe for Reebok. So Reebok had a really long partnership with Rich Froning, and at one point they gave him his own nano and competitive shoe. And they specifically made the shoe so that you wouldn't have to tie the shoelaces to train in the shoe, because Rich never really tied his shoes when he was training. It was really interesting. You're spending $180 or $200 on a pair of shoes that you're not going to tie when you train.
And so many silly things I did in my CrossFit days. And the Open, I remember the Open too. Like the Open brings out like all of that in people. Like everyone's trying to get every advantage. I remember once, I don't remember who, but obviously me and Dennis spent a lot of time together at CrossFit Garden City. And I remember like people like taping the pull-up bars, oh man.
Oh, for the burpees to get close to your fingertips?
No, for like extra grip, like the tape around, which would absolutely like ruin
people would do
rib.
that for normal workouts. They show up and they'd be putting tape on the bars, bro.
The worst time that I ever I didn't cheat, but I tried to cheat as much as possible was the burpee. The 7 minutes of burpees, we did everything in our power to cheat that as much as possible. So what we ended up doing is we found a low ceiling. Yeah.
Low ceiling was the deal.
So what we did is we stacked mats and found a low ceiling. So you did the burpees on top of the mats, so that when you jumped and you don't have to, all you had to do is touch an object. So you touched the ceiling. It was much easier to touch a ceiling than a pull-up bar, right? Because they required no accuracy. It was just up and down. And that one was definitely skirting the lines of the rules, but the rules were the rules. And so we abided by them. It was whatever. 7 minutes of burpees. Remember that one? Oh, God.
That was the very first open workout, right?
No, that was the first one of the second year, I think. The first was the snatch double under.
You're right. The first workout of the second year of the open was the 7 minutes of burpees.
Right.
Dude, man. Oh, boy. Yeah,
remember how much that captivated the entire community? Like when the competitive juices of CrossFit were flowing the most, and like, you know, Reebok was in there and Nike was in there, and you just had like, there was so much gas behind this thing. It had like 300,000 people doing the open.
Yeah. That was like 2012, 13, 14. Like it was all gas, bro. I mean, it was huge.
And then they keep changing the rules. They changed the rules again this year, apparently, again, right? With like the qualifying mechanisms for the games. They change them every year.
Well,
it's nuts.
You know, I think what Hyrox is doing really well is that it's very consistent in terms of what the event is. So people can like train for it. They know it. They could like, I could say, oh, I got this time on this, and people can like relate to it. There's connectability. And that the structures stay the same. You know, like one of the things that I think CrossFit really needs to do, like immediately, is like, dude, tell me how you sign up for the world championships and just stick with it and don't change anything for a while, so that people could actually wrap their head around what the season looks like. Because, dude, if I'm a competitive CrossFitter right now, it'd be really difficult to commit your life to the games because it's changing all the time. You know, I think that what's going to happen is some of these people are going to start committing to other events as their main event because like it's more consistent in that sense. So like Hyrox definitely took a page of CrossFit's book, but they've done it way different in my opinion. We were talking to their team the other day when we were out at Dallas about the same thing.
Yeah, they do a good job, man. The event was so much fun. And granted, a big part of it is like they brought running to be like a big part of it. So like someone with a running background, like is just going to enjoy it more because it, you know, it's kind of conducive to what I'm good at. But I had such a good time competing. I signed up immediately for another one, which brings me up to a question that I was curious. Were you going to say something, MG?
Yeah. Well, so I think Hyrox has done a really good job of putting out a formulaic race that people who come from a CrossFit background could step into and do fairly easily. People who come from an endurance background can look at the movements and go, okay, I can learn how to do some of these things and do it very easily. But do you think the race is ever going to change? Do you think they're ever going to put out like a Hyrox 2 or a Hyrox version 3 or anything like that? Is that coming down the pipeline, you think?
The microphone.
Oh, no. That's funny you mentioned that, MDV.
Pre-COVID.
No, it's funny you mentioned that because we actually had a conversation with them yesterday, and I asked the exact same question. And his response I thought was really powerful. And he's like, dude, we're getting a ton of demand for like, because I asked him, I said, hey man, have you ever thought about just doing the obstacles and screw the run? So I'm all about it. I actually think I'd win that, or do well. And he's like, nah, man. He's like, we are going to continue to have the exact same race until we have a race in every country. Right, Gabe? That's what he said. Until we have a race in every country. That's like until Hyrox is known in every country.
They want to be like really established. Because I mean, right now they're growing to a point where like, why change it? And a lot of it too.
Smart.
When you're there, it's funny because all the details, even the fact that like people can't even cut short the sled push and pull that you have to go back and forth because they're even doing that based off your timing chip. So they don't even need a judge to watch you necessarily go back and forth all 4 lengths. They're just going to hit you with a penalty if you happen not to cross the middle of the push pull. So just every event has been designed in a way where the wall balls are really the only place that needs like one judge per athlete watching. And they're having issues there, right? Because as they scale, you know, like that is the one thing where like, how do you now get volunteer judges that are either, you know, okay calling people out on whatever no reps or even know what to look for? That's the one challenge that they are having. But everything else, like if you think about it, it's a very simple, like they usually have I don't know, what would you say, Jay? Like 2-3 judges per station, just because
Yeah.
all they're watching for is like any like
Anomalies.
crazy funny business, but they don't have to watch that you do the movement right or anything. Everything's by the chip. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Anyways, so what were you gonna say, Gabe? What were you gonna say?
I was gonna ask because me and Jay were talking about this before, because I think we both have realized that like signing up for the next thing is I don't know. For me, I can't remember the last time I haven't had like a specific thing that I'm working towards, whether that's putting my name on like an actual competition that I'm going to go out there, or like this very specific goal. And I know that that's kind of unique to me, but where do you guys fall on competition or like having a very specific physical goal that you're trying to train for? Is that necessary? Is that helpful? Is there a little bit more fire when you are trying to do something? Or is it okay to just be like, hey, I want to get better at sprinting? That's pretty subjective. Like you just want to get better, so you start doing it every week, versus I'm going to sign up for a master's 100-yard dash. And that's the thing that I've put my name next to train for.
Yeah, Dennis, let's
Yeah,
go.
the competition aspect is yeah, Jason's all about it. I'm not. It's not something that motivates me at all. I don't get fired up about it. I'm not out there looking for the next thing. For me, it's not hugely important to my own personal fitness journey or my life or the fulfillment that I have as an individual. I like getting into the gym and just moving. I like putting myself through the paces of a hard workout for the benefit that I get of putting myself through the paces of a hard workout. Whatever's on the other side to compete against other people and to stand on a podium or do something like in large groups or whatever, it does not motivate me really at all. I like to get up. I like to go to the gym. I like to move around. I like to do that stuff for my own personal benefit. And it's not hugely motivating for me to have something that's on the horizon that I'm training towards. I want to look really good. I want to feel really good. I want to be able to hang with my buddies who want to work out and do workout challenges. If I get back into jiu-jitsu, I want to be able to roll and feel good about my rolls and have fun doing it. But like, I would not be motivated to go and compete in a jiu-jitsu competition, even if I progressed my belt level all the way up. It's just not something that motivates me.
Yeah, I probably fall into that same camp. But I do certainly understand and appreciate the benefit there is to setting a specific goal, not necessarily signing up for some sort of competition where you're going to be like up against other people, but just some sort of I think, one thing that I've found over the past couple months, I've had like a lot going on as far as like just life stuff and work stuff, and like training has had to, I can't put much mental energy into training. And so each day it's sort of like whatever I can fit in, I fit in. But there's like always sort of this level of uncertainty each day around what I'm going to do. And sometimes it's more mental energy than I care to put into thinking about what I'm going to do. Whereas I think if I had like a set deadline or a set goal or a set training objective that I was like looking towards in the future, it would just help eliminate that uncertainty and probably even simplify training in that like, oh, well, this is the one thing that I'm trying to get better at right now, or one or two things I'm trying to get better at right now. And it would just allow you to kind of eliminate some of the chaos and mental energy that you have to put into it. I'm sort of reaching that point, I think, now where I think I need to like sharpen the pencil a bit and say, you know what, I got to like be a little more focused around what I'm training for versus just feeling better, looking better, which is fine. And I've been okay doing that for a while. But I'm at the point now where I need to like to scratch the itch of like, this is something very specific that I'm going to start training for, probably starting next year. I don't know what that is yet, but
I got a few ideas.
I would imagine you got a couple ideas. But I probably the one that intrigues me the most is just running in general. Seems to be the one that's like most user friendly. I'm not very good at it. I've never really dedicated a lot of time towards it. I really think I can improve in that area. But it's just a matter of like setting a specific goal as to what exactly that's going to look like.
Dude, I think you bring up a really good point, Dennis. Like you've been training for a long time, and so have I, and and I think that, for me early on, it was like about winning the CrossFit Games. And then, obviously life happens and things come up, and it's like training took on this role for me of like, dude, when I train, I feel better, and I want the byproduct of it. I want to be able to look and act the part. I mean, all these things. But then I still think having these benchmarks throughout the year, like I never felt as focused recently as I did when I was getting ready for the tactical games, because it really gave me a sense of like direction and purpose on what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to improve this skill for the matter of X amount of months. And it was very rewarding for me. And I found that it carried over into other stuff I was doing at work and other areas. So if you're kind of feeling that way, I would recommend finding something. We could do it together, right? Like I'm down to do whatever at any time, because I like putting myself in uncomfortable positions, and signing up for stuff makes me commit to that. Like I told Gabe, I ran more in the last 3 months for High Rocks than I have probably in the last 3 years combined. And even that wasn't nearly as much as Gabe's running right now, but it just gave me this thing where I didn't want to look like a goofball, right? I didn't want to let Gabe down. I didn't want to let myself down. And so when I was waking up early to go get in runs, that was the motivation. It wasn't because, I want to look good, feel good. I already feel fine. I feel great. I look good, like whatever. It was because I didn't want to let down my partner, and I made a commitment to go do this run. So that was like the extra fuel I needed to stay the course. And that's why I liked signing up for High Rocks as an example.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I think that that's personally motivating for you. But
exactly.
What I do think that there's nothing wrong with the other side of the equation either,
Sure.
that somebody who wants to just go and work out, and they get the same benefit that you're saying from it. They show up better for their family. They show up better for themselves. They show up better for their job just by getting into the gym and getting a workout in. And I think that for me is kind of in the camp that I fall in, where it's like, if I train, I feel better about a lot of the other things that are going on in my life. I don't necessarily need or want to have like a competition that I'm training for. The motivation for me is just training. I like the feeling of just training. I don't necessarily believe that everybody has to be in a competitive environment or always have something that they're training for. I think training for life or training to be the best version of yourself is a perfectly valid reason to go to the gym.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when I talk about competing, like my goal was not to win High Rocks. Like I knew that we were not going to win High Rocks. Competing for me was getting better than the way I was yesterday. Like that's really important. Like when I'm competing at the CrossFit Games, I'm trying to win. When I'm doing jiu-jitsu, in some cases, yeah, it's definitely like I want to win, but I want to be better than I was 6 months ago. And when I commit to a goal and that focus, that's why I like doing it. And I think that if you're anti, signing up for stuff, competitions, like that's fine. I would just ask you to reflect on why. If you don't need that in your life and you have plenty of other things that like get you a little bit uncomfortable and like allow you to learn these new skills, go for it. Like, dude, we're not here to force anybody into anything. I just think that there's a lot to it. And I would encourage people to just think about it. Whatever that is for them is fine. Like MDV, if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. It's fine. Like you're still getting after it. You're still doing your thing. I get a lot from it. That's all.
Yeah, I think there's a middle ground too, where like for me, I kind of envision like if I'm going to try to get better at running, I would set a goal of like trying to run sub 7-minute mile or a sub 20-minute 5K or, like, and I'm not going to sign up for a mile race and run against other people, but said, if that is even a thing, is that a thing?
I'm sure you could find it. I mean, everything's a thing. Everything's a thing on the internet, dude.
I got to get my super shoes for
it's
that.
It's probably going to be faster than 7 minutes. So if you're signing up for a mile race, you're probably going to see people in like sub 4.
No, yeah. Well, yeah. I'm setting the bar kind of low for myself. But meaning like to have some sort of just directed focus in your training and a goal that you're training for. It doesn't necessarily need to be a competitive situation, but I think that is what intrigues me perhaps more. It's just having a more specific goal in my training as opposed to like signing up for this and I need to now get ready to compete against other people.
Let's go do a marathon, Dennis.
I might start with the 5K.
No, but I think that that's 100% true because it's been a big piece for me with signing up for the marathon. Because the reason I'm signing up for a marathon is just because like, I mean, I can map out 26.2 miles by here, but man, that would suck. The energy of like signing up for a marathon and the crowds and the people there, because I'm telling you, like, sure, I run well, but I'm going to get, I don't know, maybe like I'll break like top 300, like I'm not coming anywhere near like winning age group, whatever. So it's the same thing you said. It's setting a goal that is on the fringe of doable, and hey man, like everything's going to have to line up and I'm going to have to do the work before, which is why, I set that 3 hour goal, which was funny. I was even nervous to talk about it when I was like thinking about it first, because it was such kind of like a lofty goal, but now I feel in a better place to like at least put it out there, because it's going to be close. It's going to be fun. I'm excited. Yeah.
There's also something to be said, Dennis, or like even if you did it on your own, like for example, I wanted to run a sub 6 minute mile recently, and I went out and I did it. And there's something to be said about like having that earned confidence and feeling that sense of accomplishment, and that carries over into life, that I felt like, at least for me, like I was like, hey, I want to see if I could do this. And then to go test yourself, and you might win, you might lose, but like for me, being able to accomplish that was like a super rewarding feeling. And I feel like unless you chase something, you don't necessarily get that same thing on such a micro level, right? It's more of like a macro. Like, of course, I want to be fit to be able to keep up with my kids, but these little things during the journey keep me kind of like, okay, yeah, dude. So
yeah, and I think that's great for you. I'm not saying it's not great for you. I just think that sometimes we can get a little out of touch and put our own perceptions or our own feelings on other people's journeys. And I just want to say, like, I'm not saying you guys are out of touch, but somebody going to the gym 3 times a week could be equivalent to that person running a marathon. Like the perception that they have to move themselves from where they are to even just getting up and getting out of the house to go into the gym could be the same feeling that you have when you go and do the high rocks. It's just different for them. It's not everybody needs to have the competition on the horizon. The competition on the horizon for a lot of people is fucking getting out of bed in the morning because they're so depressed or so anxious or don't know how to deal with the stress of their lives. And even getting some push-ups in the morning is better than what they've been doing. And I think having some of that perspective on other people's journeys versus this blanket statement of like, everybody should sign up for something. I mean, you could say it if you want to, but I don't think that that's reality. I'm not saying that it's not good for you, but I do think that it's not everybody's journey.
And I think some people too, like I've witnessed this, like some people too use signing up for the next event as kind of like the thing that they're constantly doing, but not actually diving into the process that would give them the benefit. On the flip side, like I've definitely seen that. It's big in the running community. Like people sign up for all these races and then they just show up unprepared as opposed to just doing the work, which would have been the beneficial thing. It's almost like a crutch or I guess excuse isn't the right word, but it's like like I'm signing up for the thing, but then you still have all the excuses to not do the work to actually train for the thing, which would have been, that's what you want, right? Like that's the thing you should be doing.
Yeah. So I'm not saying it's not hugely motivating for a lot of people. It is.
Yeah.
But it's probably not hugely motivating for an equal amount of people.
All good. Yeah. I mean, dude, just in case I didn't make my position clear, I think everyone needs to find out what works for them. For me, I think signing up for stuff is a great way to accumulate skills and to stay focused in your training. But if, to MDV's point, if someone listening right now, if like, dude, if it's hard for you to get into the gym 3 days a week and that is your competition, bro, hell yeah. All I'm saying is do hard things. That's it. For me, getting in the gym every day is super easy. So I sign up for something to do hard things. But if that's hard for you, then you're already winning. Like that's just the way I look at it, right? Like, because I think adversity, I think doing hard things, I think you grow from it. But it's all relative based on the individual. Like, for example, like for me, my next chapter, I'm going to start dialing into some nutrition stuff. That's probably going to be harder for me than workouts are. And that's going to be fun. It's going to be a good challenge. But for other people, the nutrition might be hella easy. But for me, it's going to be hard.
What's the motivation for dialing in the nutrition for you?
What's the motivation for dialing nutrition? I'd say it's twofold. One is I'd like to probably lean out a couple pounds just because. That's number one. Number two, I'd like to be able to put out realistic content for people that's like real and that I think others can follow, that like make nutrition a little bit more approachable and not so like one size fits all. Like, hey, this is what I'm doing, and make it kind of like a big picture. Because also showing people the way I've been doing things for 2 decades, like I want to be able to show people what I've currently been doing. I want to show them how I can make some basic changes and how I could feel maybe better and maybe lose a couple of pounds. But I mean, my blood work's good, my performance is good, and I've been eating the way I've been eating for 20 years. So I don't know. I don't know exactly, MDV. That's a good question though.
Maybe just something you haven't explored and want to dive into it.
Yeah, because I've tried a lot of like restricting diets, right? I've done full paleo, I've done carnivore, I've done all of these. I've done many different things. I've never done vegan or vegetarian, but I haven't done one that's just like, hey, like just makes sense. We're gonna add, not take away. We're gonna eat real food. We're gonna prioritize protein. Like I haven't done anything like that before, and so I'd like to see how my body reacts to it.
You guys just had Jordan Syatt on the podcast recently, right? For the 100th episode.
Yeah.
And what was his kind of 2 cents on? Did you talk to him about your journey? I haven't listened to the episode yet. I just saw the clips.
Yeah, so it was funny. I was just talking to Dennis about this the other day a little bit because he falls very much in the evidence-based bucket. You know, like the guy that's like, hey, there's no evidence that seed oils are bad for you. There's no evidence that like this stuff is bad for you. Like everything in moderation. Like, you know, you can, as long as you're counting your macros and like
Macros,
sure
calories in, calories out.
Yeah, like, you know, at the end of the day, if you're in a caloric deficit, you're going to lose weight. If you're in a caloric surplus, you're going to gain weight. However, food quality plays into those things, but that's the end all be all of at least body composition. But obviously for health, you know, there's more nutritional foods, there's less nutritional food. So he falls into that camp. But I do think that, and this is what me and Dennis were talking about, sometimes people on that side of the spectrum are like almost too dismissive of like the carnivore and some of the other stuff. And like, I don't know what you would call this side over here, where it's not like there's, you know, all these studies and research that if you do carnivore, you're going to see your health improve. But there's a lot of people that anecdotally just do better with something that's less minimally processed foods, or just given their personality type of who they are, they will do better if they're given like very rigid,
strict
like
rules.
Here's your list of things to eat. Don't eat anything else, because if they dip their hands into that bucket, it's a slippery slope. So, you know, it's kind of one of those things where I think that, like with many other things, if you fall on one side of the debate, you tend to be overly dismissive of the other side, when I think there's some gray area in everything. So that's kind of where I think Jordan kind of falls. But having said that, I mean, I think I've shifted personally more towards the evidence-based side, the like more moderation side. However, I'm very not dismissive of the fact that like a lot of people can benefit from stuff like carnivore and keto and intermittent fasting, and kind of like all those things to me fall in this world. But I think that there's more, or at least there seems to be more dogma and dogmatic approaches to that side that are at least to me a little off-putting.
More dogmatic on the restrictive side, on the elimination diets.
Yeah. Like if you, you know, if you
and
follow,
when you say evidence-based, you're saying evidence-based based on
like it's people that if there isn't a peer-reviewed study to show that something is bad or something is good, then it's a non-starter for them. Like people like Lane Norton, people like that.
So we will be documenting whatever it is. We're going to, you know, Gabe, we're talking about it, but it's going to be a good kind of like falling in that category. And we'll see kind of what we talk about, how we make it happen. But it's exciting. I think that it's about not restricting. It's about adding. And I think that'll play a big role. I also think from a performance perspective, we'll see some gains on like longer workouts, which will be interesting, because I don't feel well enough for longer workouts. And I think it would help me feel better for those. Like High Rocks being a good example. Like I feel differently and I felt way better when I did.
You need some carbs, man. Need some carbs. It's crazy. It's a last anecdote that I'll share from this podcast, just because it's so fresh in my mind. He was eating 150 grams of carbs per hour. 150 grams of carbs. So you're
the guy from the Leadville 100.
Yeah. So you're thinking about that from a calorie perspective. That's like 700 pushing
600.
600
calories, yeah.
per hour.
In
Just
what
like
form?
goose?
Yeah, I think he was doing just mostly goose. Because the other thing he was talking about is not training with the stuff that's going to be at the race, because you want to eliminate all variables. So you're not trying to have like people that are helping you, giving you whatever you train for. You're just trying to prepare for whatever the race has at the aid stations.
Huh.
But yeah, it was like all goose and like 2 water bottles, and fast.
It's like nonstop goose.
Yeah, literally nonstop goose.
It's like an IV drip of goose.
Can you
Yeah, you
imagine?
posted a picture the other day that you were the king daddy of the goose, man. You had all the goose ready.
So one of the things that like, and this running coach that I'm working on is like part of the training for this marathon is trying to see like, what's my upper threshold of stuff that I can actually stomach, and find that now in training, because that's where your performance is going to be at the most.
Would you ever allow yourself to shit yourself while you're in one of
Like
these
that
races?
like that one lady is like, hey,
It's going viral, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it happens all the time. We've seen this in many races. It's just one of those things that is like on the outer fringe of like.
that one went viral because the way it went down. Like she's like running hella fast, and she's like, don't
Talk to me or whatever.
She was like, don't film me from the
myself.
back because I just shit
Yeah.
myself.
It wasn't like she was like jogging, like she was like sprinting and talking to the
But I
camera.
think the difference there is she won like a really, really big, well-known triathlon. So to answer your question, MDB, the reason we're trying all these things now is to make sure that I'm not in that position come race day. But I mean, dude, I don't think I would. I think I would just take a bathroom break and like
You'd pull off the race.
Yeah, pull off the race, figure it out, and then get back into it. But I don't think I'm at the point where it's like life or death. I'm shitting my pants and going to continue going.
I've run a few 5Ks and 10Ks back in the day when I was running a lot more when I was younger. And one of the things that remember CrossFit competitions do when you would show up and there'd be the line of the
porta potties.
Yeah. And it was the most disgusting.
It was gross.
Porta potty situation that you get into. And people are just eating jerky nonstop every kind of like,
They were eating sweet potatoes in there.
yeah, dude. Most of my experience with porta potties at competitions is the CrossFit community, and there's a lot of spray that goes on.
Oh God,
it is not good. It is not. Triathlon porta potties are bad.
Do people wear diapers in races?
They do on New Year's Eve in New York City.
Yeah, like in long races, I wonder if people throw diapers on, so I don't have to worry about it.
I think people
Take
know it
breaks.
slows you down. Too much drag. Just
I guess.
do what you got to do.
Rebound diapers. You need carbon fiber.
Yeah,
diapers.
carbon fiber.
That's the next
put them
biggest
in your
thing.
butt cheeks and get extra 10%. Dude,
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
man,
that's the next big thing.
You see the clip of this guy who fucking bear crawled the marathon
Yes.
through New York City?
he did it for charity, right? Like I think he did for like veterans.
How long did that take?
I'm sure we can look it up. But yeah, I did see that. His fingers and everything. They did a good job cutting up the video that I watched.
Wow.
I can't imagine how long that took.
That's got to be wild.
Just
He did it with bare hands?
hands and knees.
He had
He had tape and gloves, I think.
Jesus.
He did it in New York.
Yeah.
Was this recently?
I think it was this year.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Young Jamie.
Who is pulling this stuff up, by the way?
After 20 hours and 48 minutes, he completed the race.
20
Wow.
hours.
That's a long ass time. Oh, so he's not on his knees.
No,
He was
no,
on
no.
his.
Bear crawl. Yeah.
Oh man.
All right, 2025, Jay. There it is.
That's
There's your next event.
There it
No,
is.
so, so that one, no, thank you. But if you want to do something else, you let me know. You hit me up. I'm ready. Wow, dude, bear crawling a marathon? No, thank you. That just goes to show, man. Some people that commitment is strong. All right, well, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys talking all things fitness and life today. For those of you checking out the podcast, appreciate you guys. Make sure to go back, check out all the other episodes of the guest episodes. We have some awesome ones like the Jordan one that we just spoke about, or perhaps the Gabe and I episodes. Those are also weekly. And then we have these episodes are going out, just talking all things fitness. But as most importantly, share this with a friend if you got some value and keep training hard. Let's go.